Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a brand new reading vlog. So originally I was going to do two different reading vlogs. I was going to do my new horror releases, and then I was going to do my ARCs reading vlog. But then I realized two of the ARCs I have come out this month in June anyways, so I thought it just made more sense to put those in with this reading vlog so that it can get published before the books get published. So I feel like this is kind of maybe an unnecessary explanation, but this is a ARCs reading vlog and some new releases. But the two ARCs that I did read come out in June, so pick those up when they do come out. Thank you to the publishers. Thank you to NetGalley for allowing me to get these books to read early. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. I am 35% of the way through The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim now, and one thing I will say first of all is that it definitely doesn't feel like I've read 35% of this book. It's been a very quick, very easy read, and I think that's definitely due to the writing style. It is just very easy to grasp, it flows really well, and it's just easy to get a lot further into the book than you would think that you are. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you know when you're like reading a book and you're not really looking, and then you stop and you're like, oh my god, I'm already on this page, or I'm already this far in. That's kind of the vibe with this book. I've just been reading it so quickly and I'm really liking it. So our main character that we're following is Ji-won, but she is Korean American and she lives with her younger sister and her mother. And when the book starts off, we learn that her father has just left and her mother's obviously really torn up about it. Her and her sister obviously are very devastated as well, and it's just a really hard time for them and for their family. And then their mother starts to date a white man who is very, very obviously like has a fetish for Asian women, is very, very creepy to the two younger girls. When they go out, he always takes them out to eat at like different Asian restaurants, and he's always like eyeing up the waiters. There was one point where he took them to this restaurant and they had this Asian waitress and he was like loving it, and then she left and a white blonde waitress came over and he immediately lost his shit. He was like, we have to go, this place isn't authentic. So he's like that kind of white guy, like very ick, not vibing with it at all. Ji-won obviously is having a really hard time. She is just starting her freshman year in college, dealing with this disappearance of her father, not disappearance, but like the leaving of her father, and now this creepy new guy in her mom's life. And she starts to have these really disturbing dreams in which she is just seeing eyeballs everywhere. And this is kind of connected to, at the beginning of the book, her mom really enjoys eating like the eyeballs of a fish. She says they're supposed to bring you luck, and she always says the eyes are the best part. So Ji-won tries this eye one time and she's like immediately obsessed with it, can't stop thinking of the flavor of it. So now she's having all these crazy dreams about eyeballs and eating eyeballs, and obviously this is going to go kind of in a dark place. I'm ready for the violence, I'm ready for the killing to start. Like I'm so ready for that. We also have this other male character that Ji-won met at school in one of her classes, and he seems like a nice guy, but I'm sus of him. And I don't know if I'm right to be sus because he really hasn't done anything wrong. It's just I'm getting a vibe from him that we're supposed to think he's like this really nice, really sweet, really caring guy, and then things are just gonna turn later on. So I'm waiting to see where that goes, if my suspicions are correct or not. But I'm really enjoying it so far, and I absolutely can't wait to get back into it. Like I said, I am ready for the killing, I'm ready for the murder and the violence and the gore to start. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but that's all I have to say about this one for now, so I'll let you guys know when I get a little bit further in. It is the next day, and I am now 75% of the way through The Eyes Are the Best Part. I'm still really enjoying it. I still have those same feelings where like it doesn't feel like I've read 75% of the book. It's very interesting because it's a very quick read, but the pacing itself is not quick. Like it's definitely a very slow burn, like a very slow build up to this big thing that I believe is just about to happen, where we are just following Ji-won as she's having these very strange dreams and more impulses and thoughts about killing people and eating eyeballs, and she hasn't actually like murdered anybody yet that we've seen, but she has eaten some eyeballs, and I'm really loving those scenes. Like, I'm here for it. So I think we're building up to, you know, probably a pretty brutal and gruesome murder, and I want it. I kind of want a little bit more of that than what we're getting, but I also feel like everything that's happening is intentional to the way that the author wanted to tell the story. I don't think it was supposed to be like crazy and just like gory and like bloodfest and everything, but it's also like creepy and unsettling and has those elements of her like eating these eyeballs. And it's very interesting because like when I read those scenes, I am simultaneously grossed out but so intrigued. Like, why does the way that she describes eating the eyeballs, it kind of sounds good, but it also sounds disgusting at the same time. It's so weird, like, not holding a book up while I'm talking. I don't know what to do with my hands, but obviously, like, there's no cover on this, so there's not really a point in me holding it up. I'm just very curious at this point to see where the book goes in the last 25% and what is going to happen for Ji-won and just this whole situation with her mother and this very creepy guy that she's involved with, and how things are going to play out if she is going to get caught for the things that she is doing and the things that she has yet to do, and how that's going to work, or if she's going to get away with it, if there's going to be any lesson at the end, or if it's just like, I don't know. I'm really enjoying it, but I just wish that there was more violence and action. I'm sitting in the same spot. It is slightly lighter, but my hair is now in a braid, and I have finished the book. So, I don't know where to start with this because I feel like it definitely wasn't, this is gonna sound bad, it wasn't as good as I was expecting. I feel like I just hyped it up so much in my head because I've heard nothing but good things. Like, everybody that I've seen read this book early has given it 4 or 5 stars, so I was like, I'm gonna love it. And the thing is, before, like, the first time I saw this book mentioned, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting, but I wasn't like super about it. But then I saw more and more people talking about it, and it got me excited, and then I requested the ARC and got it. I don't know, I just think it's interesting that like originally I wasn't super interested in it, and then I got it and I was super interested, and now I feel like a little bit let down because I feel like I had very, very high expectations before going into it, and I didn't necessarily dislike it. I just feel like, I don't know. I think the pacing was definitely off, like I was telling you guys, where it's a very, very slow build up to this big thing at the end, but I just feel like it was missing a lot of like the tension and suspense. You know, when you have like a very slow burn psychological thriller, a lot of that has to deal with building like the suspense and the kind of mind games and the psychological aspect of it all. And this, I feel like, didn't really do that because I feel like you know what's gonna happen by the end of the book. There's no guessing, there's no shocking twists, there's no turns. It's just like pretty straightforward. I feel like everything that you would expect to happen is going to happen, and it just kind of plays out, I feel like, the way that you think it's going to play out. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I was thinking about it, and I feel like maybe that's why I feel like I was saying, oh, it doesn't feel like I've read this much of the book. Like, it doesn't feel like I've read 35% or 75% because the pacing is so slow. Like, not a lot of action and different things are really happening. So that's why it feels like I'm still way early in the book. I think that's kind of where that feeling was coming from. Very interesting. I'm just reflecting back on that after reading it. And I wish that the ending had like more of an impact. It really was not impactful for me. Like I said, when you're reading this type of book, like we have these specific characters, I feel like it's very easy to figure out like how the end is gonna go. And I feel like it was almost sort of rushed. Like the first 80-85% is like very, you know, slowly moving setting up different things for this like descent into madness, the making of a serial killer, and then the end just like happens very, very fast and doesn't do anything surprising. Also, while we're talking about the ending, I feel like there were definitely some, what is the word, plot holes almost, like just things that I feel like didn't fully make sense with the way everything happened at the end. And I feel like that would make sense if the ending was rushed and things weren't really fully thought about. And it just doesn't feel like the author went through and was like, okay, if this were to truly happen, like how would this all play out, what it's hard to talk about without spoiling anything, but like certain things being investigated by the police. Like, what would they investigate? What would they find out? And I feel like there are definitely some plot holes and different things that were not addressed in the end of this book, just so that she could tidy it up, put a little bow on it and call it a day. On a positive note though, I really did enjoy the writing, and I'll definitely read more from this author. Like, I want to look and see, I don't know if she has anything else out or if this is like a debut from her, but I would be curious to pick up other books from her in the future. I really liked a lot of the themes presented, and we get to learn a lot about the Korean culture that's definitely incorporated into the story. I liked the family story and all of the trauma that these three women hold. It was very, very prominent and very big theme within the story. Obviously, we get a lot of commentary on like misogyny, like gender inequality, feminism, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say is. Also, obviously, racism and fetishization of certain races. But I also feel like that kind of was a little bit not overdone, because I don't think it was overdone, but it was just like the author was really trying to make sure you understood the point she was making. And I really like social commentary in books to be more subtle. I don't like being beat over the head with it, because it's like, yes, I understand what you're pointing to here. And it felt like a lot of the male characters were almost stereotypical in the ways that they would talk, and the misogyny was present, and it was like very clearly trying to fit these people into these villainous roles, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure what I want to rate it yet. I think I'm going to give it 3 or 3.5 stars. I'll pop up like the official rating once I get to editing this video. At the end of the day, there are definitely a lot of things that I liked about this book, but I feel like it really fell short for me personally. This is one that I know a lot of people are gonna love. Like, I feel like this is gonna be like that book of the summer, like that thriller, feminist, psychological, serial killer. This is gonna be that book. Definitely don't sleep on it. Like, if you want to read it, get your hands on it as soon as you can, because everybody's going to be talking about this book. It just feels like one of those. So I'll be very curious to see when it does come out and more people read it, if I am still in the minority here, or if there are more opinions coming in that kind of align with me, because like I said, I've really only seen 4 and 5 star reviews for this book, which is great. Love that for her. But I'm just really excited to see more people's opinions on it once it publishes. Moving on to the next book, I think I'm going to start Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I'm trying to find it in my Kindle. Finally found it. Love that. Horror Movie. I'm really excited, although I'm also kind of nervous because Paul Tremblay, like, there are things that I've really enjoyed from him. Head Full of Ghosts was a 5 star for me. What is it called? The Cabin at the End of the World, I think I gave 3.5 stars. His last short story collection, The Bestiaire, I also got an arc of, and most of the stories in that collection I gave like 2 stars. So I'm excited for this, but I'm also nervous, and we actually get a cover for this one. So I'm going to start this next and let you guys know when I get a little bit of the ways through it. It's been a couple of days since I last talked to you guys, but I have started Horror Movie, and I am now 26% of the way through, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So our main character that we're reading from, we have 2 different perspectives. We have then and now. So the whole idea is that then, when he was a teenager, he was in this kind of like indie horror film that ended up never being released. The only thing that was released from it were these 3 scenes from the movie, but the movie itself never actually made it out, and supposedly there were a lot of strange things that happened during filming and a lot of mysteries around it. We don't have a lot of answers yet, but now in the present day, this man is in his like 50s, I think, and people want to do a reboot of the movie. So they want to, because they still have the original screenplay, and they want to take that and make this movie, and they want this guy involved in the project because he is like, I guess he's like the only remaining person that was a part of this. I don't know what happened to everybody else. I'm sure we'll learn that later on, but so far it seems like he's really the only one that is kind of left that was involved with the original movie. So it's really interesting because we go back and forth between, you know, the present day when they're trying to do this reboot, but then we also get scenes from the past from him being brought on board to this project. We get different snippets of the screenplay, which is really, really fun. Definitely there is some real creepy, like ominous vibes to whatever this film was, and I'm here for it. Getting the snippets of the screenplay are definitely my favorite part so far, especially because it is written as a screenplay, so like I feel like it's very easy to visualize everything because it's setting the scene for you, you know. The whole point of a screenplay, it's telling you what the scene looks like, and then you get the dialogue, and it's really fun. And it, like I said, it's just giving me this weird, ominous, very unsettling vibe so far. So I'm really interested in the story. We haven't gotten a lot, obviously 25% of the way we're just getting a lot of this setup, so I'm really curious to see where it goes and the things that get revealed about what happened in the past and the things that may happen when they are trying to create this film again. I don't know. I'm here for it. I'm really, really enjoying it. So I'm going to go walk on the treadmill and read this while I do that, and I will come back later tonight probably and let you guys know my next update. I just got to chapter 12, which is 47% of the way through Horror Movie. You guys, I'm eating this book up. Like, I'm loving it so much. I know I'm only halfway through, but it really feels like it's on track to be a 5-star. Like, it's just so good, so fascinating. I'm loving the eerie, creepy vibes from this movie and the things that possibly could have happened during the filming, after the filming. I just think it's so, so fun. There was just a chapter where he was talking about just being a part of this movie and how it gained him a lot of fans, especially after things that have happened, which we still haven't gotten fully into everything that has happened. I mean, we are going bit by bit from the beginning of the movie to the end, so everything is getting revealed to us as if we are like viewing this movie, at least when we talk about the past timeline. But he was talking about, you know, the 3 scenes that were edited and uploaded to YouTube by one of the ladies that was working on the film. And then he talked about how pretty much like all of the other people that had a major part of this film died in their own ways, you know, over the years, and he is really the last remaining like major part of this film, and how that has helped him gain a lot more fans and just like the lore and the intrigue behind it all. And I think it's so interesting because he's talking about like different podcasts and Twitter threads and Reddit threads and different things of people talking about this and speculating about it and just really creating this big fan base. And I think that's so interesting. I feel like this would have been really interesting if it was a little bit of a mixed media. I feel like kind of similar to Mr. Magic by Kirsten White, how that is about this TV show where there is a lot of mysterious circumstances and lore behind it. And in the book, we get inserts of different Reddit threads and people speculating about this book. I think that would have been an interesting element in here, but regardless of not having that, I'm still really, really enjoying the story for what it is. Like, I'm eating it up. I think it's so good. Some of the descriptions are so good as well, and it just really, like I said, I feel like I'm a part of this fan base now. I feel like I'm viewing this film and getting wrapped into the story, specifically with this character. The main character that we're reading from, his character in the movie was known only as the thin kid, and he's just really tall and lanky, and you never see his face in the film, and he doesn't really speak a lot, and I think that's all fascinating. I think Paul Tremblay is doing a really good job as well at like dropping subtle hints or subtle foreshadowing of different things that happen later on with the filming of this movie. Like, we're not getting it all right away, but we are getting little glimpses as things get way dark and way twisted within the screenplay and the circumstances surrounding the filming of it. I just think it's so fascinating, and I really feel like I am so into the story when I'm reading it. Like, even just stopping to do an update, I was like, I don't want to stop. I just want to keep reading this. I'm eating it up. 80% of the way through a horror movie now. I think I've got like 2 chapters left. I have literally all day at work been itching to pick this book up. I thought about it when I was going to sleep last night. I thought about it when I woke up in the morning, and I'm so freaking excited because I'm about to go finish it, and I can't wait. It's literally so good, but I will see you guys once I finish it and get my thoughts in order. Finished with Horror Story. I love this book. I'm giving it 5 stars for sure. This is, I feel like, a story of obsession. Not only with the character and the role that he plays in this film, but also with the reader and the character. And the reader and the role that this man plays in this film. I think it's just like absolutely fascinating. I think Paul Tremblay did a great job of telling this story, just the way that he set up the story, and he kind of interspersed these little snippets of the screenplay in between different things happening in this guy's life, not only in the past and the present, just strange things happening, but he also kind of gives, you know, little hints, subtle hints, foreshadowing of things that are to come, so you know that something big is happening, that there is this buildup going on, but you don't know what that thing is. You don't know what the circumstances surrounding that thing are, and I feel like that all really did a good job of adding to the foreboding, like, sense of dread and just the eeriness and the unsettling vibe to this entire story. I loved it. Like, I'm obsessed, and that's what I mean by it, like a story of obsession, because we are following this guy as he becomes more and more, what is the word? Like, enmeshed, I guess? That's the correct word, right? Enmeshed with this character that he's playing in the film. And it almost becomes sort of, not even almost becomes, it is this transformation of this guy as he becomes more and more obsessed with this role as the thin kid. And I think just, it's like so hard to talk about without like giving away different things that happen. And I think that's why I think Paul Tremblay did an excellent job of telling the story, and the way that he set it up, every decision that he made when writing this book and the way that the story evolves was just absolutely fantastic. Like, I'm in awe of how much I loved this book. I also really loved the screenplay element. Like I told you guys, that's definitely my favorite part of the book, is being able to read this screenplay, because the way that it's written is so good. It's just so interesting, and it really helps to create that imagery in your head, and it's just haunting and creepy. And like, literally, like I said last night, I was going to sleep and we had just read this, I had just read this like kind of big creepy scene, and it was just sticking with me when I closed my eyes at night, and I was like, that is so creepy. Like, it's almost making me unsettled, and it's not like I even watched the film. It's not like it's a real thing, but like the imagery that I created in my mind when reading the things that were written was like absolutely perfect. I don't really have too much more to say without being repetitive and without giving away different things that happen in the book, but if it isn't obvious, I highly recommend. Like, please pick this book up when it comes out. I want more of my friends to read it. I want to be able to see what other people think of it and talk to other people about it. So if you've gotten ARC and you've read it, or if you watch this video and then you read this when it comes out and you share similar feelings to me, please like send me a message so we can talk about this book, because like I'm literally obsessed. Will this be one of my top books for the year? Possibly, because I'm definitely going to think about it for a while. Like, chef's kiss. I have now read the first 100 pages of Indian Burial Ground by Nick Medina, so I thought now would be a good time to update you guys. I am really excited for this book because Nick Medina, I haven't read his other book, Sisters of the Lost Nation. I do want to read that, but I was excited to pick this one up because he had a short story in, what is that book? Never Whistle at Night, and his short story from there was one of my favorites from the collection, so I was really excited to read a full-length novel from him, and I'm definitely really enjoying the writing style. I think he's a very talented author and just very easy to read and easy to grasp what's going on. We have 2 point of views that we're reading from in here. One is from the past and one is from the present day timeline. So the story starts off with a prologue of this woman who was driving home and she gets into an accident because this man has kind of run out and just basically jumped in front of her car. So she runs off to get help because this guy's laying on the ground and he's dying. His back is clearly broken. So she runs to get help. After she has the people call the police, she runs back to the scene to go check on this guy and finds like a really large coyote there with blood dripping from its mouth. And then that's where the prologue kind of ends. Then we start off the first chapter with Noemi, and she is in the present day, and the man that was hit by that car in the prologue was actually her boyfriend. So she gets the news that her boyfriend has been killed, and also at the same time her uncle just arrives back on the reservation. He has been gone for over a decade, so obviously this is a shock to her. This is a shock to her mother to see this guy here. His name is Louis, so he is the other point of view that we get, and his chapters are from the past when he was 16 years old and living on this reservation, and there were a lot of strange things happening. There was a death that occurred and he went to the wake of this person, and the whole family was freaking out because they thought that he sat up and spoke even though he was presumed dead. Then they had this incident where there were graves being dug up and bones being stolen. So just a lot of strange things happening. I think we're definitely getting a lot more chapters from the past timeline than the present timeline, at least at this point in the book. But I'm definitely interested in both of them. I will say at first it took me a little while to adjust to, because the character that we're reading from, Louis, we have him in the present day timeline, so when we would switch to his point of view, it would take me a second to remember, oh yeah, like this is back in the day, this is not the present day anymore. But Noemi is having some issues. Obviously she's having issues because her boyfriend just died, and everybody seems to think it was a suicide. It seems to be like he threw himself out in front of this car, but she strongly disbelieves that. She doesn't think that is something that her boyfriend would do. So now she's learning more about like the increase in suicide rates among Native people, especially like post COVID. So that's definitely an interesting topic brought up in here. I do appreciate that the author does make a little note at the beginning and says that the book deals with addiction, alcoholism, murder, deaths of children, and suspected suicide. So I like that he, points out all of those things, puts the content warnings right there for you guys. But so far in these 100 pages, we are just flashing back and forth between the 2 point of views, learning more about what happened in the past and uncovering more things in the present. And I'm really curious to see how it all connects. The synopsis mentions something menacing might be lurking within their tribal lands, and I think that's really interesting. I hope it brings in like some native folklore. I think that is absolutely fascinating and one of my favorite things to read about, especially when it comes to horror from native authors, when they bring in culture and folklore into the story, I think is so fascinating and so fun to read. So I'm definitely enjoying it. I don't really have too many thoughts right now, but I will see you guys tomorrow. Another 100 pages, so another update. I am on page 232 of Indian Burial Ground, and I have to be honest with you guys, it is moving very, very slow. Like, we're getting a lot of depth to the characters, but plot-wise, there's not a lot happening, especially with this present-day timeline. Honestly, I think, like, at this point in the book, I'm really questioning if we need this present-day timeline, because we go back to that timeline a lot less than we are in the past and in the perspective with Louis. And I also feel like his perspective just has so much more depth and so much more intrigue, and there's just so much more happening in that past timeline that I'm like, do I really need the present timeline? I understand, I feel like, you know, the stories are going to merge together because whatever Louis went through in the past on the reservation is clearly the same thing that is now happening with Noemi and the cause of her boyfriend's death. So obviously I feel like Louis is going to come back, it's going to be full circle, and he is going to play some part in putting a stop to all of this possibly. So I understand, I guess, where it's going with having both timelines, but I also feel like I'm just not enjoying when I'm reading the present timeline. Not that it's bad, it's just the other one is so much more interesting to me, and all of those characters I feel like have so much more depth. Louis has a lot of issues with his mother, alcoholism and addiction, and it's really taking her toll on her, and in turn taking the toll on the children, Louis included, and then his sister is Noemi's mom. So it's really interesting because we get to see Louis as a teenager when he is taking care of Noemi as a toddler and living in this chaotic and really difficult household and just really trying his best to make sure that things are okay for her and for himself and figuring out what he wants to do in his life. And then there's also so many like creepy, weird things just happening on the reservation with these bodies being dug up at the cemetery, mysterious deaths happening, and strange things occurring at the wakes and the funerals of these deaths. And I think it's all really, really fascinating, and just the present timeline for me doesn't have that same level of intrigue or that same level of depth with any of the other characters. I'm still enjoying it, but I just feel like it's kind of starting to drag a little bit just because of how slow everything is progressing. I think it has to really, at this point, like, it needs to pick up because we are over halfway through, and I can't imagine how the plot is going to go for the last, how many pages would that be? Like 130 pages? Like, it just feels like, I don't know how slow the first 230 are. Will the last part of the book be so rushed that it's just not even enjoyable? I feel like that seems to happen a lot when you have a really, really slow build-up in books. So I really hope that doesn't happen because, like I said, I am enjoying the story of it, but it just, something different needs to happen before I get tired of reading this book. And it's so difficult because Nick Medina is so talented. I'm really loving his writing and, you know, the fully fleshed out characters in this, and I just want the plot to be more there. Done with Indian Burial Ground now, and where do I even want to start with this book? First of all, Nick Medina is so talented. He is such a fantastic writer, like absolutely no complaints in that department. The writing was just beautiful. He really knows how to freaking write a book and how to give depth to the characters, and I really liked the horror elements in here as well, and the way that the trauma that the characters have gone through is incorporated into that horror and is a big part of the book and a big part of their story. I really, really appreciated that, and the way that he handled all the topics in here, very, very difficult topics. I think I read you guys the content warnings, but he did a beautiful job with handling it all and presenting it all in the story. The only thing I feel like that I have a complaint about is that dual timeline. I feel like it just wasn't done to the way that I would have liked it to be done. I don't know how to explain it. Louis' timeline, which was in the past when we're reading from Louis' perspective, was absolutely perfect. I have zero complaints about that. And I almost feel like the book could have been perfectly fine if that was the only perspective we had, the only timeline we had. Like, that story had a beginning and a middle and a climax and an end and a resolution. Then we have Noemi's timeline, or her perspective in the present timeline. So it's the same characters. You know, Noemi was a toddler in the past timeline. Now she is 40 years old in the present timeline. But I feel like her story just wasn't as strong. Like, the mystery surrounding what happened to her boyfriend and trying to uncover that, I just feel like the story wasn't super strong, and I just don't know how to feel about it, because like the entire synopsis is talking about, you know, her boyfriend supposed suicide, and she teams up with her uncle to try to figure out what happened, and he brings up some stuff from his past. But I think that the story, the book, majority of it focused on what happened to Louis and what happened on the reservation in the past. So I feel like the synopsis needs to be rewritten. I don't know if this will really make sense to anybody who hasn't read the book. Like, I'm trying my best to explain it, but I just think, like, maybe if we didn't have Noemi's story like interwoven in with Louis, and maybe if we just heard Louis' story from beginning to end, what happened on the reservation, and then had like a epilogue or like a little chapter at the end that's like, oh, this many years later, and he's coming back to the reservation and making amends with his past trauma and these things that happened to him. I think that maybe would have worked a little bit better, because I just feel like Roddy, who is Noemi's boyfriend, the one who dies at the beginning, I feel like he didn't get the character depth that I wanted, and their relationship didn't have that depth that I wanted. Like, we get to see little glimpses of it. We get to hear Noemi talk about how wonderful he was and how much she really loved him, but nowhere near the amount of depth that we get with Louis and the characters in that past timeline. So I'm really not sure what to rate this book, because if I think about this book without the chapters of Noemi in it, and I just think of the past perspective, Louis' perspective, that would honestly could almost be a 5-star for me. Definitely a 4 or a 4.5 just in Louis' perspective, but then you add Noemi's perspective into the mix, and like I said, things get a little bit muddled and wasn't my favorite. I'm still not sure what my final rating is. This is gonna be probably a 4, honestly. Once again, Nick Medina is freaking talented. He knows how to write a book, and I'm definitely going to pick up Sisters of the Lost Nation. That is his first novel, but I don't know why I decided to read this one first. But after loving this and loving his short story in that anthology I mentioned, I think that Sisters of the Lost Nation could be another really enjoyable read for me. I am just about 100 pages into The House That Horror Built now, so I figured it was probably time for an update. So we have this main character, her name is Harry, and she has a teenage son named Gabe, and they are not in a very good, like, financial position. This does take place in, like, modern times. Like, we are pre-pandemic, where the kids are just getting back into school. So her son Gabe does, like, I think 3 in-person days and then 2 days at home still. So it's kind of like that era of the pandemic. So she was out of work for like a month, and now she has this new job where she is a house cleaner for this guy named Javier, who is a really famous horror movie director, and she is actually a fan of him, but she never mentioned that to him because she didn't want that to, like, disrupt or kind of lessen her chances of getting the job, because she really needs this job. So she didn't want him to think, like, oh, she's coming in as a fan and she's going to invade his privacy. So she's just kind of kept quiet and like stuck to herself, not really divulged too many personal things to this man while she's there cleaning his house. But one day it slips out that she has a son, and he immediately takes an interest in that and invites her and the son over for dinner. And now that's kind of progressing where he like is very clearly, I don't know what the word is. Very clearly, like, it seems like he wants to form a relationship with her son. So we have been learning, we're mainly following, like, this present day timeline, but we get a couple, like, short chapters here and then of her past, and then also Javier's past, and you know, making his first movies and things that happen in his personal life with his wife and his own child. And then we get to see like Harry's past and the household she was raised in. Like, her parents were very, very religious. They didn't let her have any sort of anything related to horror. They didn't let her see any R-rated movies. They went through a room at one point and found like Stephen King books and basically like lost their minds and said that Satan was getting into her brain, and they took her out back and like burned all this satanic stuff that they found of hers. So that is a household that she came from, and now we're with her in the present day where she's working for this man and really trying her best to raise her son right, but it's very hard because, like I said, they just financially are not very well off. I really like it so far. It's definitely been a very, very quick read. It is pretty short, and the chapters have been not super long, and I don't know, I'm just really liking it. It has a very like gothic atmosphere to this household that she is in. Obviously this guy, like I said, is a famous horror movie director, but he's also like just a horror fan. So he has this mansion that's pretty much filled with like horror memorabilia and like different props and costumes and posters from different horror films. So that's just been really interesting as well. There have been some references to like real life horror films because obviously like all of this guy's movies are created for the story, but they reference like Jordan Peele at one point, obviously Stephen King, like I mentioned. So that's just been kind of interesting and kind of fun. So the whole premise of the book, like the synopsis says, she cleans his house and she hears from this locked room that she's not allowed to go in, she hears somebody call for help one day. And that has happened at the point that I'm at in the story. There have been a couple of other like strange things that have happened, but right now she hasn't really done anything about it because she's just trying to convince herself like, this is ridiculous, this is crazy, like obviously there's nobody there, he's not keeping people captive, like trying to convince herself that she's just being ridiculous and thinking that she heard something. Anyway, I don't have too much to say as of yet. I'm hoping things will pick up after this point. Like I said, about 100 pages in, and it is a 315 page book. I definitely think things need to start picking up right about now, so I'll let you guys know. I'll probably see you tomorrow when I've got a little bit further into this. I look like kind of a mess right now because we just got back from the beach. Well, a little while ago. We've just been relaxing, but I did some more reading while we were there, and I am now up to page 224, which is chapter 13 in The House That Horror Built. And I'm not really sure how I'm feeling about it right now. Like, I'm still enjoying it. I like the writing. It's a very quick and very easy read, so obviously, like, that's good. I think my favorite element of the book so far is the relationship between Harry and her son Gabe, because obviously, like, being a single mother to a teenage son when they have like these financial issues, and she's talking about how hard it is to like go to the grocery store and get groceries for the week, how hard it is to make rent, and now they have to move because the owner of their like apartment complex is selling it, so she's like house hunting, apartment hunting for like a cheaper option. She doesn't have a car, they have to take the bus everywhere. Like, it's definitely, she has her hardships, and I feel like that can definitely put strain like on a mother and son or just a parent-child relationship, but they have such a strong bond that I feel like comes across really well. They both really care for each other, and that is really nice and really sweet to see, and I like the way that they interact and the way that they talk to each other. I think that's my favorite part. However, as far as horror, like, nothing's really happening yet. There haven't been any more developments in this like inappropriate relationship with her employer. There was this like accident that occurred at the house, and now for different reasons like the house is being swarmed by like reporters and paparazzi, and different things are happening in that sense, and now Harry's kind of questioning if she still wants to work there because obviously that's a lot to deal with, and she doesn't know, like she's still a little bit uncomfortable about the bond or the liking that, what is his name, Javier has taken to Gabe, but like not a lot has happened. Like there's some hints to like paranormal things going on in the house, but like nothing really. Like the horror aspect is just not there, and I want something to happen because right now I have less than 100 pages left, and I feel like there really hasn't been a lot of developments, and I don't know where the story's going or how things are going to wrap up in those last like 90 pages or so. I feel like the rate that it's going, the ending will probably be unsatisfying, or it will be a book where I finish it and I'm like, okay, nothing happened. So we'll see. I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to hope to finish it today. I should be able to finish it today. And I'll probably update you guys after I finish it because I am so close to the end. I'm not ready for this. This book was really bad. If you have this on your TBR, take it off. Like, I feel robbed. I feel like I've wasted my time by reading this book, and I know it's gonna seem like this update is kind of coming out of nowhere because I haven't been saying like really bad things in the last updates. Like they've been pretty positive, but I know I did mention that like it needs to pick up because it's not really like going anywhere, like nothing's happening, and that stayed through like 300 pages. Nothing really happened, and then the last 10 pages of the book we get told everything, and then the book just ends, and I really dislike that. So I'm going to talk about it in a spoiler-free way, try to figure out how to explain why I dislike this so much without spoilers, and then I will do like a spoiler section for those of you guys that are curious. So first of all, by the back of the book synopsis, we know that Harry gets his job working for this guy. She has a son, whatever. While she's there, it says she starts hearing noises from behind a locked door. Noises that sound remarkably like a human voice calling for help. The thing is, that happened like twice. She heard strange noises and a voice saying help me, but then she never did anything. Like she literally was like, oh, that's weird, and then just never investigated, never tried to figure out what it was or like solve the mystery, and then it didn't happen that often. There were a couple of other like paranormal elements that happened, different like haunting type of things, but that was like very few. There weren't a lot of those moments throughout here. The biggest thing was like there was absolutely no tension in this book. You know, if you're reading like a haunted house paranormal story, like you would expect the tension to be there. You would expect it to be anxiety inducing and scary, and you're always worried for the character and what's going to happen. But all of the moments in which this like haunting or this paranormal entity was brought up or something did happen with that, like there was no feeling to it. There wasn't any tension at all. It just kind of felt like something would happen and then it would pass, and then the entire book we're just following Harry around. The pacing was very off. Crazy things didn't start to happen until the last like 50 pages of the book, and then even then, like I said, the last 10 pages of the book, it just explains everything that happened. But like throughout the story, Harry isn't really like investigating or trying to even figure out what happened. She's just like, oh, I probably just imagined that. That was weird, and then moves on with her life. I do stand by the fact that my favorite part was the relationship between Harry and Gabe. I really enjoyed that, and I think that was definitely the strongest element, is that relationship with the characters. So I'll probably give this 1 star. 1 star just for Harry and Gabe. The rest of it, isn't even worth my time, except it is worth my time because here I am ranting about it. I'm gonna get into spoilers now because it's really hard to explain more without the spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, I'll put the time up that you can skip to. I'll give you guys a minute to skip ahead if you don't want spoilers. Okay, so if you're here for the spoilers, first of all, thank you, because I need somebody else to witness, like, how dumb this book was. Like, I literally put it down and I was like, I'm mad right now. Like, this book has me wanting my money back. I didn't even buy this book. It came from the library, but I want my money back. I want my time back because I feel like it was wasted. So, let's talk about the plot of the book. I know I've already told you guys we have Harry working for Mr. Javier, and he is this big, like, horror movie director. But the thing with Javier, he has this scandal where in the past his son was accused of murdering this, like, famous actress who he was, like, supposedly dating at the time. People heard them arguing, and then she turns up dead. And then it is publicly believed after that that Javier's wife took the son and they, like, fled, and Javier has no clue where they are. They just left after these accusations come out, and Javier believes that his son is guilty, but he doesn't know where he is. So that's, like, kind of his past and the story surrounding him and why so many people are, like, interested in digging up dirt. So when Javier gets interested in Harry and Gabe, her son, and invites them over to dinner, and he's really trying to get on Gabe's good side, he decides to invite over two of his, like, actor friends who were in one of his horror movies that Gabe really, really enjoys. So he surprises Gabe with these two people. They're stoked. The four of them all have dinner together, and then Harry and Gabe leave to go home for the night. They get news the next day that one of the actors has died. She accidentally fell out the window, and that's what caused all those reporters to flock to the home. I know I mentioned that. I said something happened. So now there's a bunch of reporters trying to, like, figure out what happened to this lady, and this guy already previously being involved with, like, another murder scandal just has a lot of people suspicious. So throughout all of this, the second actor that Javier had invited over is still, like, in the house. He's just kind of living there with him, kind of taking care of him. He doesn't want to leave him, like, in a time of distress right after the death has occurred. And then Harry is facing, like, her deadline is running out in order to find a new apartment, and she's having a really hard time with that. So Javier obviously, like, invites her to live with him, which I feel like I saw coming. I saw that coming within the first 100 pages, and it didn't happen until page, like, 260. So when there was, like, 40 pages left in the book is when this is just happening. So I feel like the pacing is definitely off there. But Harry eventually takes up that offer, and she and Gabe move in with Javier so that they have a place to stay. They don't have to go to a homeless shelter, and she can save up some money for their move eventually. So at this point, we have four people in the house. We have Javier, the actor, Harry, and Gabe, and they're all living there. And there are still some, like, strange things happening with the ghost, but only Harry and Gabe are, like, experiencing them. Javier has never mentioned anything, and the other guy has never mentioned anything weird either. And the thing that bothers me the most, like I said, Harry, like, she doesn't even try to really investigate or, like, figure out what's going on. I think they do, like, 2 Google searches, and they're like, we can't find anything, that's so strange. And then, like, they're like, whatever, it's fine. She doesn't ever try to investigate, like, this locked door in the time that she's working there or in the time that she's staying there until the very, very end of the book, which I feel like if I'm working for somebody and they have a freaking locked door that they've told me never go in there, that door is locked, that door is private, and I hear banging on the wall and somebody yelling, help me, even if I'm not going to investigate it myself, like, I feel like I would go to the cops. I would tell somebody, like, hey, can you come check this out? But Harry never does that. And I get she doesn't want to lose her job because she needs the money. She's not very well off. But, like, if there's somebody in there that is potentially being held captive, potentially being, like, tortured and possibly going to get murdered, I feel like I would be like, well, yeah, I need the money, but I don't want to be involved in all of this, or like responsible, or that feeling guilt if something happens to this person. So I just don't really understand that. But anyway, while they're living there, Gabe starts to like act out. He gets kind of these episodes where he's just really angry and really mean and just not like himself at all. So Harry, of course, is like, he's possessed. A demon has gotten into him. This ghost that lives here has gotten into him, and I need to get him out of here immediately. So one of the nights that they're all there in the house together, she eventually decides that it's time to figure out what is in that locked door. So she goes up there, she tries to open the door, she's like, oh my god, it's locked. Who would have thought? And she's trying to like look underneath the door, like the crack between the floor and the door, and then she hears that voice saying like, help me, help me, help me. And a gust of wind comes and like blows through the crack in the door and like knocks her out. And she has this vision. Basically, she like wakes up in the point of view of Javier's wife. Now, mind you, this is all happening in like the last 15 to 10 pages of the book. Like, nothing has happened up until this point. So she wakes up and she is like seeing through the eyes of his wife, and she sees them arguing, and then Javier kills Michael, his son. And his wife is like, oh my god, you killed our son, we need to go to the cops. Javier's like, no, we don't have to go to the cops, like it was self-defense, like we can't have this getting out, and he killed that girl anyways, so like who really cares? So his plan is to take the son's dead body, taxidermy it, and then because he's got all these like movie props in his house, he's like, we'll just like set him up among the props and nobody will ever know. And at that point, like, I was just laughing because it just was so stupid. Obviously the wife is like, we're not gonna taxidermy our son and hide the fact that you just killed him. So Javier, of course, kills her, and Harry wakes up from her vision at this point, and everybody's around her. She immediately gets up and she's like, Gabe, like, you gotta go pack your stuff. We have to go. We can't stay here anymore. And Javier's like, what are you talking about? And Harry basically says, like, I know that you killed your son. I know that you killed your wife because she just showed it to me. Like, her ghost just showed me what happened. And Javier's like, okay, true, but actually she's not really dead. Like, yeah, I killed my son, but my wife, she didn't actually die. So Harry is there with Javier, and this other actor that's been staying there is there as well, and they're like, okay, like, you gotta show us what's in that room now. Like, show us the truth. So Javier takes him there and unlocks the door and opens it up, and they see like this hospital bed basically with his wife on it, and she's like attached to an IV, and they're like, oh my god, she's in a coma, you've been hiding her this whole time, what is wrong with you? And then they look closer and they realize that she's actually dead too, and she also has been taxidermied, but to look like she's sick. So Javier has just been pretending that she's not actually dead. And then, if that wasn't ridiculous enough, the ghost of Javier's son just like starts a fire, and then Harry and that actor and Gabe all run outside, and then the house burns down, and then the book literally ends. Like, it ends right there. We don't ever get to know anything further than that. And everything that I just explained, like I said, happened in the last 10 pages. Like, the point where she goes to investigate this door happens in the last 10 pages. The point in which like she moves in with her son, that's like the last 50 pages. So essentially 250 pages of you reading like pretty much nothing, but also knowing like this is going to happen. I also feel like it's kind of obvious. We know that like there's a locked room with a woman's voice screaming, help me, thumping on the wall, and we know that he was involved in this scandal, and his son and his wife are supposedly missing. I feel like that would just be very, like, that would be a red flag. You'd probably be like, oh my god, he's holding his wife and maybe his son captive in this room. But Harry, no, she doesn't care. So that was this book, if you were wondering. I did not enjoy it. I did not think it was good at all. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, and quite frankly, I'm mad. So it's safe to say that this did not go very well. So we're gonna just like throw, oh my god. I didn't mean to actually throw it out of my hand. I meant to catch it, and then I got scared because it's a library book and I didn't want it to get damaged. Anyways, we're just gonna throw that out and move on to the next book, the last book for this video, and hopefully it'll be way better than this piece of garbage. Hi, it's been a while since I filmed that last clip, and I was gonna put a different book in here, an extra book. Like I said, this was gonna be 2 different reading vlogs at first, but as I was reading that last book, I realized I didn't really have a lot to say about it. It was a short book, and I just didn't have a lot of feelings. So I figured, why not just combine the 2 vlogs, have my new releases and my arcs in one video, and then cut out the last book. So that brings us to the end of this reading vlog. Clearly, some things went better than others, but thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.